My mother passed in 2003 in a hospice. All right, so she was in Canada, in Toronto, and in that particular situation, she was hospitalized for a long time, about 3-4 months. And then when they decided that they really could not do anything for her in terms of curing her, they suggested the hospice wing, which is right beside the hospital. Same floor, actually, just wheel her in to the other side. And I actually stayed with her at the hospice for 2 weeks. And I had a really calm, positive experience, because the people there, they are not like other nurses. I mean, nurses are, in general, it's just great, but there's a different character about them. And it's sort of a very deep, profound want or desire to make life really comfortable for the patient. And they treated my mom was in a coma by that time. And they just treated my mom as if she was, active. She would talk to her. If they want to wipe her down, say, Lise, we're going to do this now. If it hurts, tell me. And I just saw this really compassionate side of healthcare. And I said to myself at that time, and that was more than 10 years ago, I said, I want to get involved with this. But life goes on, and I never really make that happen until last year, 2013. For various reasons, I quit my job. Mainly because I was in finance for so long that I really felt this is it. Like, I don't think I can do another audit anymore. And plus, it was my second daughter last year in high school. So I said, okay, this is it. After this, I'll be empty nest, and I will not have, been able to spend a lot of time with her. So I said, okay, I'll quit. That was in September, and I was able to go to all her tennis games. I even went to her friends' tennis games. It was just awesome. And then I started thinking, what do I really want to do in life? Okay, and I was very fortunate in a position where I could take some time off and do what really means a lot to me. So the first thing I went to was look into hospice. And I researched quite a few hospice facilities, and the reason I picked family hospice was because of its nonprofit nature. And I just liked the feel of it, the website, and then I met with Pam, and she's a darling. I mean, she's just so good at what she does, and so I went for training, and that's how it started. I've been a volunteer for about a year now, and I must say at the beginning it was very scary for me. Because, despite the really good training by Pam, but listening is different from when you actually experience it. And I remember my first patient, it was an in-home patient, and I really did not know what to say. But you just push yourself. You just say, this is just comfort. Okay? There's no right or wrong. So whatever you feel, you be comfortable with yourself. Be more confident with what you already experience, and try to project that. And the patient will feel your energy. And it really doesn't matter whether you say the right thing or not, because I was like that. I was like, oh, is this the right thing to say? Will she be offended if I say it this way? Or should I mention kids? What if his kids, are no longer alive? And would I, that kind of thing. And I just learned to be comfortable with myself. And I've had 7, 8 patients now. I would say that I'm not fearful, but I'm still a little tentative, because you really don't know the person, and you don't want to be out of line. So you just tread it slowly. You try this way, and you look at the body language. You look at the facial language, and say, maybe I shouldn't mention this again. So I take notes. I actually used to write down all my experiences so that I don't forget. But now I'm experienced, so I tend to be more confident, and I just feel it. I'll say that the main thing I take away from my year experience with hospice patients is I really get, if not more, out of them than they get out of me. I learn something different from each patient. One of my patients, a current patient, I would take her out for walks. Actually, some sort of walk, but mainly outside for the fresh air. And she would ask me, said, "Joan, are you hearing the birds? Let's look at the flowers. What color is that flower? It's so beautiful. Look at the grass. Look at how green they are. The sky, the blue sky, the clouds." And have to honest with myself that I never really think of it that way. She had problems breathing. She always needed an oxygen tank. And she asked me, she told me, so, "Joan, you're so lucky. You can breathe by yourself." And so all this just made me really appreciate life. Really try not to take things for granted. And really now I feel I have everything. I don't really need any more. So, and that's one patient. And my first patient, actually, she was my first and only patient that I visited at home. All the other patients was in a skilled facility. And she taught me that there's no place like home. That's why she was at home. She was telling me all these stories about her daughter, about her son. You could tell that she's just so connected with her home environment. And she used to travel quite a bit, but she said there's no place like home. And it's so true, because I just came back from a 3-week trip to Vancouver, Hong Kong, and Philippines, where my husband and I grew up, and we had an awesome trip. Visiting all these families and friends. The food was awesome, and the weather was terrific. But again, she was totally right. We came home and I just have this profound relief that we're at home, where the love and faith and passion is where it lies. The first time I met this patient. Actually, I call him Sean Connery because he looks exactly like Sean Connery. And actually, when I asked him, do you know he doesn't. So, but anyway, the first time I met him, I didn't really know a lot about him, and but only the fact that he couldn't speak very well. So Pam suggested that I read to him. So first time I went there, I brought newspaper, and you know, most people like the Steelers here, and so when I got in, he just stared at me, and not saying, not acknowledging, not like trying to say hi, no, nothing. And so I just started talking to him, and I said, "Is it okay if I read to you?" And he just nodded. So I read a Steelers article. That didn't take that long, and then I asked him again, you know, do you want me to read another one? And he said no. And then I go, what am I going to say now? And then I said, well, I know a lot about myself. You know, maybe I'll ask him, you know, do you want me to tell you about myself? He said no, not interested. So I just, I think I talked about the weather, something really, you know, safe, you know. And then I think the nurse came in and did something, and then I said, I think it might be time for me to leave. And he nodded, and he said, and then I asked, do you want me to, I mean, no, actually I said, is it okay if I come again? And he sort of rolled his eyes a little bit, and said, okay, like, you know. So I go, all right, you know, I have a little bit of in. So I went next time, and about the same thing happened. You know, he wasn't very responsive, and but I started to ask him questions. You know, where were you from? And he was able to answer me in a whisper. You know, from Pittsburgh, and you know, have you been here for a long time? You know, so he started to warm up to me a little bit. But I wouldn't say he was that thrilled, you know, to see me every time. But I persisted. You know, I persisted. I think at one time I brought my iPhone and said, do you want to listen to some music? And he went like, so I knew I hit something. I hit the jackpot. To me, it's a jackpot because he was very responsive. So I have him listen to a few songs. And by the fifth time, he was so comfortable with me that he actually showed me what was wrong with him. You know, he was, you know, trying to illustrate that, you know, he was doing this, you know, that he couldn't move his arm, and he even, you know, showed me his size, like something pretty private to me that none of my other patients have done that. So it just made me feel so good. You know, it's just little things that he did that made me felt I've accomplished, you know, something, and that made me feel really, really good. Unfortunately, after that time, actually, in a way, not unfortunately, because I would not need to visit him again, but he actually was not classified as a hospice patient, and so he is continuing treatments for his condition. But since he's still at the facility I go to, and I see him occasionally, and I still wave, and he still remembers me, and he's actually improving. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. Even though my personal experience with my mom was very vivid, but I definitely need training with other patients. And what was actually very valuable, my first thought was there were four of us, four or five volunteers, and they would bring in their experiences, with why they came. And one gentleman is actually a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and so he brings in a different perspective of what this means. And so I really find that very valuable to see what other people, why they're there and what experience they got. I probably tell them that it might be scary at the beginning, and it's probably scary because at the beginning, because it's a lot of unknown. There's this person that you're trying to comfort that you don't know anything about the history, so the unknown is scary. But on the other hand, I guarantee you that you will get a lot out of it, than you think. I mean, you might think that you're doing them a favor, but in the end, they are doing you a favor as well. Because it's not a one-way conversation, or if sometimes you can't converse, it's not a one-way communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. It's really a two-way communication that is very meaningful and valuable to life.